Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to this session on challenge-driven approaches, co-creation, co-design, and how to use these approaches and methodologies to facilitate and accelerate a green, digital, and fair transition. My name is Andrea Di Anselmo from Meta Group, associate member of EBN from a long time, and I have the pleasure to moderate this panel and to guide you through this discussion, having in mind that a challenge-driven or problem-oriented approach is really something that we need to take into consideration, especially we taking part of the BIC, the big community, the support service community. And sometimes we tend to be too much solution oriented and to forget that a solution, an innovation, or even a policy, they exist to address and solve a need, a problem, a challenge. Today I have the honor to guide you through this discussion and to provide you with examples on how the big community can be even more relevant in addressing challenges with a co-creation and a co-design approach. And we will see this from different angles: the angle of climate and neutrality, health, and let's say social aspects. And we will discuss this with Laure from Murcia, Roberta from Erved. Roberta is also the president of URADA, so she's very much into regional dimension and economic development aspects. Tom is from the Climate Action Network, so he's going to bring us the point of view of key actors and NGOs on this. And Agnieszka, she's from Krakow, but she has an extensive experience on Living Labs, co-creation, and the relationship and contribution of Living Labs and co-creation when it goes to smart cities. I won't spend more time on this. Thank you again for being with us today. And I will give the word to Laure so she can guide us through his experiences and let us understand how to be better and more relevant here. Please, Laure.
Thank you, Andrea. Good afternoon, everyone. So as Andrea said, my name is Laure Razo. I'm working currently at the EU BIC in Murcia, in the southeast of Spain. We are a technology-based company incubator. But not only, we also promote entrepreneurial spirit and business innovation from early ages with specific activities for children and young people. We also have a line about private investors with the Murcia Business Angel Network, and we also, through the incubator, support the creation and consolidation of innovative technology-based companies. So this support is mainly about financing, support the business plan, and also until the consolidation of our network companies, but we also have a focus on internationalization. So in that regard, I'm working in this international area. And we try to foster the ecosystem and to try to promote internationalization through European project fundings and to support the companies to reach these EU initiatives. So Andrea asked me what I was thinking about co-creation, how it can be relevant for our network. Well, I would say right now we are involved in a project in health sector. I will explain it further, but I would say that co-creation is about collaboration, but from early stages for me, from the beginning. And as mentioned before, of course, if we focus on the solution, we first have to know what are the needs of the societies, and to try to promote solutions that are that fulfills these needs. So in that regard, Cherries, it's a H2020 project in which SAME, is a short name for my organization, is partnered together with 11 other organizations all across Europe. It's a project focused on healthcare sector, but with a really wide range of stakeholders involved, such as regional government, universities, CSO, and two bigs. So it's this project aims to have an impact on European territories by involving a range of actors and stakeholders in the definition of the social challenges in the health sector. So it's a lot of work, but so how will we do that? Mostly by implementing a demand-driven approach towards the co-creation of innovative solutions. So we have different phases on the project. Regarding the pilots, going from identifying the needs from the society with an open call in 3 European territories that I will mention here shortly, the region of Örebro in Sweden, the Republic of Cyprus, and here the region of Murcia. So in each territory, we identify the demands, and then we have a call for the solution, and then we co-create the solution. And our focus is also very important by interlinking the responsible research and innovation concept to the demand-driven policy and territorial innovation models. So we develop a methodology that is Cherries, and we hope that this methodology, we are starting now the co-creation, will be very, very successful to adapt this solution developed by companies and other entities to tackle the demand that we previously identified. I will give you some details later on. Thank you.
Laura, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Eager to learn more in detail how a BIC is going to be relevant for this. Tom, you are sitting on top of 185 NGOs, which by definition are very much problem focused. Please.
Yeah, thanks. Well, real pleasure to be here today, and thanks for EBN for hosting. So yeah, Tom, my role at the organisation I represent is as head of network development. I suppose a key role because as a network, we represent climate, energy and development NGOs across Europe. As was mentioned, that's 185 organisations currently, and that's growing, and that's over 38 countries. And I suppose we aim for delivering two-way gains, and one is to support and strengthen the impact that civil society can have at the national level, strengthening climate and energy policy across countries in Europe, but also conversely representing those organisations towards the European institutions in Brussels. So by its very definition, our work is co-creation within civil society. But I think what's important to note is that we understand the need for that to go further, and for that to be something that employs and reaches out to other stakeholders. And the project that actually we're presenting on today, Pentahelix, which actually we're very proud to be involved with EBN as well, is one that really embeds this idea of co-design and co-creation at the very heart of it. And that's about designing and implementing sustainable energy climate action plans at the municipal level with a range of stakeholders And that's from the very start, the inception, the creation of these plans. We're bringing in public authorities, industry, academia, NGOs, civil society, and then also citizens. And the idea is that they're formed into these consultative bodies, the pentahelix method, these 5 pillars. They'll be there through the creation process, but also given enough support to then be there for the implementation, even after the project's ended. And I think it's an innovative model. We developed a lot of CCAPs directly, and then through our replicators, we've also started the process developing a lot of other sustainable energy climate action plans across 5 key European countries. So that's Norway, Latvia, Spain, Belgium. And I think what we've seen as a network is that this sort of approach can really start to attend to some of the challenges that we see. And I think what was good about this panel here is that we're taking this challenge-driven approach. And I think we need to be very clear that the challenges are big. The European Union has stepped up on its EU climate legislation, but it's not enough. And I think we need to accept that if we're going to reach the challenges that we need to, which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by -65% by 2030, we're going to need to think about how we meet these challenges and how we go about bringing in municipalities, business networks, other stakeholders, and particularly civil society to sort of stimulate and catalyze this ground up change. And I think we need to be clear that the challenges, you know, as I said, are large. I mean, we've got COP26, the international negotiations coming up. And I think there we'll see how our governments are really responding to projects like the ones that will get mentioned during this panel, to the calls from civil society, from business, for them to also step up and meet that challenge. But we can discuss a lot more of that later on. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thanks a lot. We are all interested in understanding how these long-term challenges and transitions can be facilitated by a community of doers like our business incubation centers, our organization. And please provide us with very clear examples, if you are just starting now, on how this can be done and on your experience for this specific type of challenges. Roberta, welcome. Roberta can introduce herself, of course, but she's really bringing in the angle of regional development and a long experience in the field. Roberta, please.
Thank you, Andrea. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here with all of you. I thank EBN for the invitation. I present briefly myself. I'm here as president of EURADA, which is a European network of regional development agencies. We have more or less 72 to 80, depending on the years, regional development agencies spread all over Europe. And on the other hand, I'm head of unit inside Arter. Arter is a new co. It has been created thanks to the merge of ERVET and Aster, 2 regional development agencies which started their work on the regional territory from starting since the early 70s. So as Andrea was saying, it's a long time we work on our regional development and on the territory. Now Arter as main mission and objective, the one to facilitate the research and innovation processes inside the region, and to promote the attractiveness of our region and the development of our territory. And when we talk about territory, when we talk about research and innovation, we are talking about different kind of stakeholders who are supposed to, I think, to be involved, I think and believe, to be involved in the processes of co-creation. So let's go to what I think it could be or it should be a process of co-creation. It is a methodology of working with the civil society and a tool for fostering the collaborative innovation. But what we do not have to forget is the objective. As my colleagues have already said, the final objective should have a social value, a social impact. So all, and of course, it should involve different kind of actors and should respond to perceived needs or even to needs still to be perceived. And this, I would like to underline that, because not always people and the society and the citizens and the different users of innovation know exactly what they need. So we have to be very, let's say, to be able to understand which is the point of connection among the innovation, the needs, perceived needs, or needs which will be perceived. Anyway, never forgetting the impact of what we are doing. I believe that working closely with the regional government and public administration, as Arter, we have this role of intermediate body, let's say, among the territory and the civil servants and the politicians and policymakers. This means that we have a heavy and huge task, which is the one to, on one hand, to work with the civil society, to work with citizens and with enterprises and innovation lab and universities in order to foster their openness to work together with the actors with which they are not usually used to work with. I know that I'm not saying anything new, but the thing that I believe we have to keep in mind is that this is a very difficult task. It's a very difficult task, and the political commitment is always important, not always necessary, because often innovation coming from a bottom-up approach can be then embraced by the public administration and adopted and launched and fostered by the public administration. So this is more or less what I think about the concept of co-creation. If you want practical examples, we have been working in an interesting project concerning co-creation, which name is Territoria, but I will go in the nitty-gritty of the project afterwards. And I stop here. I don't know if I took too much time, but I kept the time under control, and I don't think I spoke too much. Thank you.
No. You are okay. Almost on time, Roberta, don't worry. Agnieszka, we know that you are an expert in co-development and in connecting these methodologies and experiences with the challenges of smart cities. Please, the floor is yours. Introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. So shortly, I'm Agnieszka Włodarczyk-Gębik, called Agnieszka. I'm from Kraków Technology Park, as you know, located in Poland. Coordinator of SysCode project I would like to tell you about, and responsible for Kraków Living Lab. Very short intro about our organization. We are the most complete one-stop shop for businesses operating in Poland. Our core business is IT, ICT, game industry, Industry 4.0 and smart city. And we are also the digital innovation hub and operator of Polish investment zone. So we have many challenges to deal with. But what is really important here and what brought me here is that we support administration on the regional and national level in creating and implementing policies and strategies with deep involvement of public and a varied group of stakeholders. We did it for regional innovation strategy, we did it for air quality plan and many other projects. In our ecosystem, you have 150 companies. We have 19 international projects, but we do take benefit of being active part of EBN community, International Association of Science Park, and European Network of Living Lab. We are one of 2 accredited living labs in Poland, and in fact our journey started with them. So I think there is not much to be added to the great definition my colleagues already presented, but let me share with you my personal view. As in good definition, as in recipe, there is always one secret component. I call it heart and I call it emotion. Technology is very important, and as you said, Andrea, behind any solution we offer to the clients, we offer to our families, to the customers, there is a human being. So what is really great, great experience we got from the CISCOT project I will tell about is listening and hear what is said and not what we want to hear. It is opening our way of thinking, ways of conducting things, and concentrating on the real needs of the user. And the project I'm referring to is the CISCOT project. It was Society in Innovation and Science through Codesign that we just completed in April. In this CISCOT project, there were 10 creative labs around Europe who work with design-driven approaches to tackle with local challenges with quadruple helix stakeholders in order to find and test relevant solutions together. And what we did as the Kraków Technology Park, we focused on important issue. It was air pollution, with the line with climate neutrality agenda, and we produced two prototypes, new air quality plan from our Polska region, and introduced the pilot platform for monitoring industrial pollution. And what is really important that those prototypes introduce a key change in political and societal thinking. The discussion about air quality is no longer the question of should we deal with it, but it is the question how can we deal with it, involving all actors of quadruple helix, listening of the inhabitants, listening of the businesses, academia, and NGOs. So if you ask me what is unique in the CISCOT project, definitely how can we deal it together? How can we solve the problems together? There is not us. There is no border between you and me, but the challenge is our common. And the approach and methodology of co-creation, which was tested and developed within the CISCOT project, has been incorporated in many other projects undertook by Kraków Technology Park. We did Mała Polska Live program in great cooperation with stakeholders. We incorporated the methodology into creating new regional innovation strategy for Małopolska. Also under Interact projects, which are focused more on Industry 4.0, we opened the floor for policy learning labs, training and empowering people who are working on strategies and policies for advanced manufacturing and Industry 4.0 technologies. So,
okay, Agnieszka.
Yeah.
We will have time for the next round when questions. will come in to get more insight on how in practice you implemented this, which is very interesting. You all highlighted impact, and you all highlighted the fact that impact cannot be achieved if something is not going to be used. A technological solution, a policy approach, a service. Now, my question is for each of you, how, according to your experience, co-creation, co-development can reduce the risk of developing something that is not used? Law, please.
Okay, so in our case, since we started with asking the citizenship basically on what are their needs in each territory about health, it was an open call, so we targeted according to the region also some more citizenship, academician, university, etc. And we had different type of responses, which also maybe I will mention later about COVID, but it was quite linked to the COVID in our case. The question is, of course, since we identified the needs and then we converted them into challenges, these needs, they were also evaluated by selection committees. And all of these steps, we involved different type of stakeholders. And it was very important, as I think Roberta said, also to have the policymakers side, because when we're talking about health, of course, we have the provider of health services. It's also depending, at least in some states, on regional government and institutions. So it was really important for us to have stakeholders, different type of stakeholders that we previously mapped. Maybe I can talk about this also. This was very crucial to map into the ecosystem who are the innovators and what are their type of commitments and what they want to do, what they can do, and to match it with the demands. And also when we select the needs in each territory, we pay attention to users. In the case of Murcia, for example, we had the patient association of multiple sclerosis, which is our needs, identified needs, sorry, that was involved from the beginning. And then we had the selection, and then they are also involved in the selection of the solution itself, the company who will develop the solution, and into the co-creation. So it's meaning they were the I will keep on Murcia challenge. They were the one who identified the need with the university and the healthcare professional, and they will develop it in a co-creation way with the solution provider.
So in order to give synthesizing this very key important message, you integrated the challenge owners, the group who felt the problem the most in the process, from promoting the problem into contributing to the better identification and selection, up until the, let's say, participation to the co-development of the solution. And so you made sure that key actors, users, the ones who felt the need the most, were there since the very beginning and always there across all the process.
Yes, exactly. Because here in each territory we select different needs, but as provided services, health services in remote areas in Cyprus, or prevent loneliness among elderly people in Sweden. And here it is actually the how to detect the progression of an illness in real time, let's say. So.
Okay.
They promote these needs, and they've been selected, of course, and then they support to convert it into a challenge and to select the solution provider and co-create. But what is important also, talking about health sector here, because
30 seconds, Laura.
Oh yeah, okay. Here we are as facilitator of the ecosystem, but what is important too is that we include, of course, the healthcare sector, who is also a potential user, because you have to match the reality of the patient with what is needed for the practitioner to know in order to detect the progression of the disease. So it's not only, I would say, the user as patient in our case, but much more general also.
Okay,
you need, yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Tom, you are dealing with long-term challenges. How co-creation helps you out in not being efficient in such long-term processes? What is your experience?
Yeah, so I mean, the long-term issue is subjective, I suppose, in some senses, right? I mean, we need to look across Europe. This summer climate impacts are here, wildfires in Greece, flooding in Germany, in Belgium. So I think, you know, the immediacy is actually there, but of course the planning scale, and especially if you look at how municipalities are planning now, is towards 2040, 2050. And I think, you know, we recognize that you have to balance the immediacy of the problem with the need for, you know, quite deliberate and staggered planning for the political economy of local areas and for countries as well. So I think, you know, going back a little bit to where Law was that there, you know, of course, there's the need to avoid things going unused, but there's also a process of going through failures and learning from them as well. And I think, you know, that's something we've seen a lot within the Pentahelix project, where we have this linkage between the EU level policy and, you know, NGOs probably in some moments, you know, hammering home the need for immediate action, with local areas struggling with, you know, political will, a lack of financial support, for example, and then needing to sort of meet this in the middle. And I think that's that multi-governance level that we need to do. And I think when we're talking about implementing changes through co-creation, bringing stakeholders together, we are actually talking about humanizing policies that are going to impact people's everyday lives. We need to make sure they're equitable, fair, proportionate, and that they're matching the capacities of a local geography, a local area to adapt. And I think that long-term planning is probably one of the best ways that we can institute that sort of development. And the longer we leave these issues and the less they're discussed, the less challenges we're meeting now, I think the more severe the ways we need to adapt will be. So I think one of the ways that, you know, we've seen through this project and other work we're doing with municipalities and being able to sort of implement local planning is that need for local voices, representation, in some ways a question of sort of democratic access to how their lives are going to change, is vital, is important, but it's also strengthened by being able to give people a long-term context. So what's going to change up until 2030? You know, I think that's what the immediate plans do, but then what are the long-term plans and strategies to get us towards 2040, 2050, and this sort of holy grail idea of net zero? So I would leave with that message on this little bit, this question, I guess, that it's a hard balancing act between convincing people, engaging stakeholders, engaging businesses and communities into this idea for immediate action, without sensationalizing the issue, and also diverting from how, you know, development pathways have happened for cities and municipalities over the last, you know, 20, 30, 50 years, which is for, you know, long-term structured planning. And I think that's something we'd like to emphasize as well.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. Roberta, you have the experience of another governance level closer to the actual needs of specific target groups, being them citizens or companies. How co-creation may reduce the risk of developing something that is not going to be used and then generate impact? What is your experience there?
Let's say that we have led or co-leaded or cooperated in different projects and activities. Of course, co-creation is not yet something which is part of the way that the regional government make innovation policy. Is starting, but it's not yet something which is structural inside as methodology inside the innovation policies, because maybe it's easier to finance one single project, one innovation, big innovation, not take into consideration all the aspects which can be let's say, involved in that particular innovation. So it's easier to give money to a good idea to a company than to do it after all this process of co-creation, which takes time, which complicated things, and which oblige the different stakeholders, as Tom was saying, in a multi-level governance approach, renouncing in somehow to their priorities, to their field of activity in order to understand better the needs of others. Let's go a little bit telling you which can be the risk. The risk, in my opinion, in co-creation and not in co-creation in general, that is to give to develop something which will be not used or which can damage some aspects of the social life or the life of citizens or of a particular stakeholder in a territory, is maybe also to create something which is used on one hand, but if it is not good for other kind of users. So the holistic approach should lead the co-creation activities. So it can be sometimes dangerous or can complicate the response of other needs. It's not only the question of involving enterprise and user, it's a question of have this holistic approach. Then we, just to give an example, we as a development agency try to help a local innovation ecosystem in co-creation better value projects in the framework of a regional grant scheme. So one of the rare regional grant scheme called Collaborative Research and Innovation Projects. We did a capacity building activity. So we addressed our activity to the stakeholders through hackathons or sparks, but mainly helping the regional government in putting together the different actors inside a peculiar ecosystem, depending, of course, on the research and innovation area. On the other hand, we have established an open innovation platform, which is named EROI, in order to connect the regional innovators and challenge owners. I also think that knowing well your territory, knowing well and mapping the different potential actors interested in a peculiar area in which we think that innovation is needed is the base. And having a good management of stakeholder is very, very important in this kind of project.
Roberta, thank you very much. Also, because you are somehow predicting one of the questions from the audience. But before giving the floor to the audience and allow you to give your feedback to them. I just would like to leave the floor to Agnieszka so she can present us how she's addressing the risk of something which is not going to be used using a co-creation, co-design approach. And then we will open up to the questions from the audience. Please, Agnieszka.
I think, reflecting to our example, our case developed under the SysCode project, this air quality plan. Definitely, the air quality plan, where is what created, was very, very ambitious. We entered the very early stage of the consultation phase, supporting our regional authority to create the program that really is realistic, measurable, scalable, but also can be approved by the citizens of Małopolska. Because in the past we had the plans, however, the tasks and KPIs put in the action plan weren't achieved by the citizens. And what was really important from the regional perspective was to really get involved the public citizens, the businesses, and together create the agenda that will be implemented. And asking about the risk in developing such a huge, such important document, strategic document, definitely that thanks to the discussion, workshops, meetings, informal meetings, we even went outside our building, we met the citizens at their venues at the convenient time for them and spoke their language. Definitely what we found out that creating the policies from the perspective of Kraków, the big city, is not what will be then well introduced. So not all financial instruments are achievable for inhabitants of smaller villages, for example. There are a lot of funds for the modernization, exchange of old household furnaces. But the truth is that the gasification investment in some of the small villages are just finalized. If we really want to have success of the strategy, of the policy you implement, you really have to understand what the situation is, and not from the perspective of big cities, but also from the perspective of smaller cities, poorer citizens with some inabilities. And I have to say that thanks to joint cooperation, also another, I would say, instrument was implemented, like eco-advisors, the people who work very closely to the citizens to support them, to understand why is it important to change that habits, everyday habits, as far as the heating is concerned. Why is it important to change the habits about the transport they use every day? Where can they look for the support? Where can they find money, etc.? So it's not about the softening the regulation. It is about making them more realistic and achievable by all citizens of Małopolska region. Regarding the pilot implementation of platform for monitoring industrial pollution, it was a part of our quality plan. It also proved to be very efficient and effective pilot, generating many crucial insights, reflection, and recommendation for creation of the platform that will be covering all Małopolska region, all companies being here. So we started with 50 companies, and got the pilot, get interviews. You know, the COVID brings some risks here. We had to go online. However, the work we started, the cooperation with regional authorities, with the Inspectorate of the Environmental Protection, you know, it all worked well. Also, I think that position of Kraków Technology Park, who is very close to the companies, also supported, because the platform, I have to say, and it is my last word, was not only addressed to citizens, but also to the business. So citizens got the education and business got the information and controlling sensors.
Thank you. And this led me to introduce to a question from the audience. Please use 30 seconds to answer to this question. Involvement of stakeholders has been mentioned as a key ingredient and challenge at the same time by all of you. Please provide us with an example, a practical example, because also the big community is a community of doers, on how you handled stakeholder involvement, how you made that possible and managed it. Laure, please, 30 seconds.
Okay, so in our case, the first step was a mapping of in each territory, as I mentioned previously. This mapping is very important because ecosystem exists. The issue, the problem would be to find out the innovators within this ecosystem, people who are really willing to change and to contribute in a co-creative way to bring some innovative solutions, let's say. So this was our first thing. And also we made a lot of webinars just to engage the people. And as I said in the first call we did for the call for needs, we in some region we try to have already a consortium of institutions willing to work on a specific demands that will be committed in the whole process. Of course, it requires a lot of commitment from all the stakeholders, but we have the change also in Cherries as partners. We have EBN also at European level, but on territories we have some consortium that includes regional government, healthcare sector. So we already had a lot of partners on board. It's previous to the co-creation, so we already have people very involved in the innovative part.
So two keywords. First of all is mapping, and second is providing support and guidance and raising awareness, because this doesn't happen automatically.
And explain the benefits of the co-creation for them as individuals and as for the institutional changes also.
Tom, what about you? What about your level of governance?
Yeah, so I mean, look, let's talk specifically about the Penthelix project. Sometimes we involve them with great difficulty. So I think you need to often have the force of will, and we're talking about the full transition of society and our economy, right, in this ecological transition. So it's essential. And as well, not wanting to necessarily make a joke, but we did write it into the grant agreement with the European Commission, so it was essential to do. But I think we had some key things we followed, stakeholder mapping, as Laure said, but a clear structure for how their active and meaningful engagement would matter to the project, but also their local area. And I think that's really important. So there were those clear milestones for what it would mean to have them in, and it wasn't just for the sake of, you know, ticking a box for the European Commission. And I think that's something really important to make clear to anybody who wants to be involved in something, you know, be it sustainable energy, climate action plans, or any other sort of stakeholder engagement.
So a clear planning with KPIs and milestones that allows a clear monitoring and a clear understanding of results achieved and engagement achieved. Thanks, Tom. Roberta, what is your experience in ensuring the right involvement of stakeholders and the right commitment and contribution?
As already been said, it's a difficult task. We have some examples of activity. We have done kind of open innovation mapping. We have tested with some early adopters the kind of survey in order to launch a broader community of innovators inside the region. So the tools can be different. So we started from with the launch to the creation of this community of innovators, starting from these early adopters. Then we adopt a different solution to support open innovation networks at regional level. Then we also do a kind of scouting at the university level and with startup, also thanks to different events and meetings that we organize with them in order to show up their characteristic. So this allows us to grow the number and the names and the characteristic of the potential actors to be involved in the co-creation exercise. Then, of course, the difficult thing is to mix the different stakeholders, is to manage the meetings, to manage...
Roberta,
yes?
you mentioned a platform, an open innovation platform. Can you just, because this is something that also coming up from the audience, can you just give us the name so they can Google it?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. The Open Innovation Platform is EROI. EROI, that stands in Italian as heroes, but it's EROI. And you find it, you can Google it, and I think you can easily find it. It's a community of, it has been supported by our regional government, and it's a kind of platform in order to connect regional innovators and challenge owners.
Okay, Roberta, thank you very much. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Agnieszka, your turn, 30 seconds before we go to the last messages from you.
Okay, we of course also started with mapping our stakeholders, keeping very open invitation for everyone who was interested and wanted to co-create with us the air quality plan. We covered customer journey, we work on personas, but what is important at the end of the day, under a set of workshops, we went to setting the priorities, looking at our region and about what we want to achieve, what is the starting point. And by setting the priorities, we also agreed for short and term action plan that what changes will bring the crucial added value to the environment, and we really change the situation with air pollution in Małopolska region. So then we invited the stakeholders to work together in groups and create the project proposals, their own ideas, how they see the implementation in of air quality plan in the small communes. That's how we work with that.
Okay, Agnieszka, we still have less than 6 minutes. I would like to use this time giving you really 10 seconds each. All of you mentioned how co-creation at the end of the day is based on people. Is based not just on technology, technical dimension, but very much people related. So now I would like you to tell us in 30 seconds what you learned from co-creation. An example of something that left you a sign inside and that you like to share with all the big community, with all of us. Laure, please, 30 seconds for this message.
Yeah, as you say, it's all about people, and I think what impacted me the most is it's not that easy, but it's not kind of normal to have this kind of co-creation things when it should be normal to talk, to exchange, or look, I have this problem and you can provide me this solution, so how can we work together to do it? It's just, it should be as simple, but of course, the difficulties also are about the commitment. It's a long-term process. It's not something that you do in short time. So it demands a lot of commitment. But I think it's also for me it's also very nice to see in the end we are at the start of the co-creation experiment in Cherries in the 3 territories, but the first 2 phases were very interesting to see how the people are happy that we take account their needs, and then they can be part of the development of the solution. This is really important.
Laura. Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Tom, your spot.
So I'm going to try compact 2 messages into this. And I think, you know, we're coming to the end of our project. And now when I look at the actual numbers of what's been achieved in local areas, in Norway, in Spain, in Belgium, Latvia, you know, it's a lot of change that's been achieved, and they're real numbers. And I think sometimes from our perspective, we're the network, we're based in Brussels, and you don't see that. But, you know, coming now and seeing the actual, the achievements that are beyond the KPIs, that's something really interesting. And maybe just to also attest to the other level of co-creation, which is quite often this is between countries and between different European contexts. And I think that level of co-creation is something that contributes to the European project, and that's something that's vitally important for this whole transition.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks a lot. Roberta, your message.
My message is that it's a long-term process, I confirm. People, enterprises, research lab, universities, and public authorities are almost ready to get involved, deeply involved in these processes. So we have still to work a little bit in order to explain what these processes means. But above all, we should demonstrate the impact of these processes. So we should also try to concentrate a little bit more on impact evaluation and monitoring.
Okay, thank you very much, Roberta. Agnieszka.
Thank you.
Okay, I will unmute myself. So message from me, definitely start and build your co-creation process on synergies and look for joint values. And it goes with another my thought that behind the procedures and regulation, there is always a human being, and it refers to both sides. What is also very important, and what we experience in the co-creation journey we undertook under CISCOT, was creating positive and trustful atmosphere that everyone could present their opinions and view, even very controversial, you can imagine, and not acceptable for majority of participants. So there was no marginalization, no justification in the co-creation process. And the last message that is really worth doing a step back and take a risk and to go out of the box, because at the end of the day, even if it's time consuming, more risky, pulsating with emotions, it really pays back in the long term for the whole ecosystem.
Agnieszka, thank you very much. Thank you for this last message, and with this final recommendation to think out of the box and leave the comfort zone, because only leaving the comfort zone, we can innovate and better serve the needs of our customers. And this is also a big message for our big members. I would like to thank all the people who were with us and contributed with questions. I would like to thank Laure, Tom, Roberta, and Agnieszka. I hope you enjoyed, and looking forward to meet you again at the next annual Congress of EBN. Bye. Ciao.
Thank you.